This is the beginning of file 2. Today's goal is that you will be able to plot and interpret data from that graph. So how will you know that you've met this goal? Take just a minute and think about that. Now I did create notes for you. The notes are just above these links in the course section of the MPM1D website. So do print those out if you haven't already. It's much better to actually fill them in, and then you're having some thought going on instead of just listening to my voice going on and on and on. So pause this video if you haven't done that yet, and print that out. So you'll notice here that we have a table of values. You'll notice that it is something to do with time and sit-ups completed. And your job is going to be to describe the relationship between the completed sit-ups and time. So you need to decide which one will be the dependent and which one will be the independent variable. This one isn't too complicated. There's a couple of clues. First of all, your first clue is that time is a nice regular interval, and often the independent is regular. Not always, but often. You'll also notice that the number of sit-ups you completed is totally dependent on the time that you followed, and that makes sense, right? You'll do more sit-ups as the time goes on. So it does make sense that time is independent and sit-ups completed are the dependent variables. So I want you to take a minute, pause the video, and graph this relationship on the graph paper that I provided. Okay, at this point I'd like you to go to your 523 in your textbook and download the other link. I have it on this screen, but I don't think it's going to work for you. It's a link to the TI-83 Plus zip file, and you're going to run vti.exe. So the beauty of this is you'll have a graphing calculator at home. It's also on my website, so if you want to go back to the first screen and the sidebar, then you'll notice it down there as well, so that might be an easier way of doing it. So work through page 523 in your textbook and use the data on the previous page, and you can graph it on the graphing calculator and see it very accurately. So again, pause the screen. How do you know if your data is discrete or continuous? Okay, so you have to remember what we meant by discrete, because we've done this before. So discrete. Discrete is, for example, people. So if you have people as your one of your variables, people can't be, you can't have half a person, you can't have a quarter of a person. They are just single integers, and it's just not going to work if you use anything else. You could also kind of have negative values as well. Continuous would be something where you can have lots of data points in between each of the tick marks on your graph. So for example, time, that's a good way to remember it. And if you remember what we talked about, discrete, to show that it's discrete, we're going to use a dashed line like that. And that will show that all the data points in the middle are not filled in. And if it's continuous, you just use the normal line like that. At this point, I'm going to save, and you'll be loading the third file.